In this last week, you'll explore how various stakeholders monitor a marketed product's safety profile and FDA's regulatory requirements for post marketing surveillance as the number of patients taking the drug grows. The marketed product's safety profile continues to be evaluated and updated as new data are generated. The regulatory authorities, sponsor pharmaceutical companies, healthcare providers, and the patients, of course, have a common goal to ensure patient safety. To meet this goal, these stakeholders all contribute to the continued assessment of a therapeutic drug's safety risks and the benefit risk profile to ensure that the benefits continue to outweigh the risks. Here is our agenda for this lecture. We'll go over definitions and scope, product life cycle for safety monitoring, kind of refresh what we've gone through in week 5, 6, and now 7. The U.S. post-marketing surveillance requirements, U.S. spontaneous and voluntary reporting of adverse drug experiences, which is one of the U.S. post-marketing surveillance requirements. Another can be REMS, and the third are active surveillance activities, and then what you'll get out of this week and things to think about this week. Here are definitions for pharmacovigilance, adverse drug experience, and post-marketing surveillance, which all play a role in risk management and drug development. Pharmacovigilance is the term used for risk management activities throughout a product's life cycle. Through post-marketing surveillance, as noted, FDA and sponsors continue to monitor and assess risk as part of the ongoing risk-benefit assessment for marketed products. As stated on this slide, post-marketing surveillance is the identification and collection of safety information on marketed products, and this is our focus for the week. This graphic displays the drug development process, so we're going to review risk management in this context. So during drug development, there is an evaluation of the investigational drug's safety and effectiveness, specifically in the context of risk-benefit analysis. IND drug and investigational drug are used interchangeably. Once a drug is selected for development, the pharmaceutical company initiates preclinical studies to elucidate the biological activity, potential mechanism of action, and evaluate the initial efficacy and safety of this investigational product through the conduct of in vitro studies and in vivo animal studies. FDA requires the sponsor to submit an IND, which includes the preclinical information, the clinical information, and also the clinical supplies information under the section termed Chemistry, Manufacturing, and Controls to support the initiation of the first clinical trial. The IND contains results from the completed preclinical studies. Phase 1 studies are conducted to evaluate the safety of the IND product, as well as generate data to better identify the optimal dose range. During Phase 2, safety and efficacy data are generated in the patient population under study, usually in small placebo-controlled trials with patients numbering about 100 to 200. In Phase 3, the sponsor conducts larger scale trials to evaluate safety and efficacy and build a good-sized database, which also includes long-term data from ongoing open-label trials. Once the drug is approved and launched into the marketplace, the sponsor and FDA begin their post-marketing safety surveillance activities, as depicted in the highlighted green box. And this is where FDA and other stakeholders identify any safety signals, report adverse drug experiences, and continue to ensure that the benefits outweigh the risks for all marketed products, because now many more people are taking the drug. In the US, FDA has three regulatory approaches to ensure risk management continues through post marketing surveillance. These are spontaneous and voluntary reporting of adverse drug experiences to FDA through MedWatch, risk evaluation and mitigation strategy plans, also termed REMS, which is another mechanism, and lastly, there is active surveillance, which allows FDA to also actively evaluate alternative sources of safety information beyond adverse drug experience reporting. Now I'm going to briefly discuss each approach. First, U.S. spontaneous and voluntary reporting of adverse drug experiences. 21 CFR 314.80, titled Post Marketing Reporting of Adverse Drug Experiences, are regulations that require sponsor companies to review all adverse drug experiences reported in various ways to them and inform FDA either through submission of a 15-day alert report or periodic adverse drug experience report or PADER throughout the marketed product's life cycle. MedWatch is FDA's electronic, web-based safety information and adverse event reporting system. MedWatch is the system where healthcare providers and consumers, which are also patients, voluntarily report all types of adverse reactions, such as suspected adverse reactions and serious adverse reactions, also product quality issues, which include therapeutic inequivalence issues with generics, and product errors associated with any FDA regulated approved therapeutic. MedWatch supports all drugs, biologics, medical devices, dietary supplements, and cosmetics marketed in the U.S. But this is just a reminder, our scope for this course is on drugs and biologics approved as therapeutics. FDA also requires sponsors to keep abreast of what new safety aspects or unfavorable benefit risk elements are reported. For example, there might be case studies of patients who are taking a sponsor's marketed product found in published literature or even unpublished literature, and this has to be reported also to FDA. In addition, for local and regional adverse drug experience reporting assessments, the Joint Commission, which is a nonprofit independent organization that accredits about 21,000 healthcare organizations and programs throughout the U.S., also plays a role. One of their accreditation standards is to ensure post-market reporting of adverse drug experiences is performed on an ongoing basis and is regulatory compliant. And this is done by them verifying this through their accreditation process. The second risk management approach is risk evaluation and mitigation strategy plans. Congress passed the FDA Amendment Act of 2007 that provided FDA with the authority to enforce REMS, and that's the FDA Amendment Act is termed FDAAA. The format and content are provided in the draft FDA guidance on the format and content of proposed REMS issued in 2009. FDA may require post-marketing studies as part of a REMS, as a condition for marketing and also as a condition for marketing approval. FDA issued a guidance for industry on post-marketing studies and clinical trials, which also goes into more detail about the types of post-marketing studies. And I'm just going to discuss two of the more commonly occurring post-marketing studies. First is a common observational study, which is a pharmacoepidemiological study, which is designed to assess a serious risk associated with a drug exposure or to quantify risk or evaluate factors that affect the risk of a serious toxicity, such as a drug dose. Registrations are also sometimes required. A registry provides a repository or database to collect clinical trial results as part of post-marketing surveillance. Or for marketed products, there may also be a registry, for example, to collect outcomes, such as pregnancy outcomes for women who are taking a particular marketed drug. In addition, FDA may require randomized clinical trials as a condition for regulatory marketing approval. This may be the case if FDA grants accelerated approval of a new drug. The sponsor is obligated to follow the regulations in 21 CFR 314.500, accelerated approval of a new drug for serious or life-threatening illnesses. And they will have a REMS, the sponsor will have a REMS to conduct further studies to verify and describe the drug that's been approved through the accelerated approval process to really demonstrate the actual clinical benefits. The last approach is active surveillance, which is defined by an FDAer who presented at DIA as this. Active surveillance is the regular periodic collection of case reports of drug events from healthcare providers or facilities, such as healthcare facilities, with a focus on events, settings, or drugs of interest. The main purpose for this type of surveillance is to identify a drug safety signal and validate the identified safety signal through adverse event reporting systems. Active surveillance is also done by other organizations such as major healthcare systems like Kaiser. And the Drug-Induced Liver Injury Network is also listed on this slide, and this was established by an NIH institute, the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases. Now, this DILIN collects and analyzes cases of severe liver injury caused by prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, and alternative medicines or complementary medicines. The other example listed on this slide is Sentinel, which is FDA's electronic system for monitoring the safety of FDA-approved drugs and other medical products. Some other examples of big data databases also include claims databases from healthcare insurance companies, electronic medical records, and registries from other large healthcare organizations. So what should you get out of this week? What is post-marketing surveillance? How does FDA perform their risk management responsibilities for marketed products? How does the sponsor pharmaceutical company conduct their risk management responsibilities for their marketed products? What are the expanded enforcement activities under REMS programs since FDAAA was enacted? And here are some things to think about as you go through the readings and interact with your fellow students on the discussion board. How is safety data collected throughout a product's life cycle? What approaches does FDA use to perform risk management for marketed products? How are REMS utilized by FDA and sponsor pharmaceutical companies? Thank you very